I never thought my life would collapse so fast. One day I was a wife and a new mother, and the next I was standing alone with my baby girl, Lily, in my arms, abandoned. My husband walked out when Lily was barely a year old. Desperate, I carried her back to my parents' house in Ohio, hoping they would at least open their doors. But within months, they pushed us out with nothing but a suitcase and cold words. "We can't carry your burden anymore." So there I was, under a highway bridge, clutching Lily against the winter wind, listening to her cry from hunger and cold. I thought this was the end of everything. And then, through the rain, a tall man in a black suit stepped toward me. He stopped, looked me in the eye, and said words that froze me in place. "Sarah, I am your grandfather." When I look back, I can't even pinpoint the exact moment my marriage started to unravel. At first, everything seemed normal. David and I weren't wealthy, but we had enough. He worked long shifts at a small car parts factory in Columbus, while I stayed home with Lily, trying to stretch every dollar for rent, groceries, and diapers. I thought we were partners, surviving the struggle together. But slowly, I noticed the changes. David began coming home later, his phone always buzzing, his smile fading when he looked at me. I tried to believe it was just stress, the weight of bills and responsibility, but deep down, I knew something was breaking. One evening, after another exhausting day of feeding Lily, washing bottles, and pacing the apartment floor to rock her to sleep, I asked him, "Are we okay, David?" He barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, fine." But his eyes told a different story. Distant, distracted, guilty. I ignored the warning signs for weeks, convincing myself he still loved me. Until the night I found a message on his phone from a woman I didn't know. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't let her suspect." My stomach dropped. My hands shook so hard the phone slipped from my fingers and clattered on the floor. When David walked into the room, his face turned pale as if I'd caught him stealing. "Who is she?" I whispered, my voice breaking. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just sighed, almost annoyed, and said, "Sarah, I can't do this anymore. I don't love you the way I used to. I've met someone else." Those words cut through me sharper than any blade. I looked over at Lily sleeping in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling, and I thought, how could he do this? How could he abandon her before she even knows what a father is? I begged him to stay for Lily's sake if not mine. But his suitcase was already by the door. He kissed Lily on the forehead, not even glancing at me, and walked out without looking back. The apartment suddenly felt colder, emptier. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, everything seemed louder in his absence. The following days blurred together. I tried to manage on my own, but the rent swallowed half of what I made from my part-time cashier job at a grocery store. Diapers, formula, and doctor visits piled on top of that. I skipped meals to make sure Lily had enough, drinking coffee instead of dinner just to stay awake through the night feedings. And yet, no matter how hard I fought, it was never enough. The landlord started leaving notices on the door, bold letters screaming, "Pay or vac it." I cried silently while holding Lily, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. "Mommy's here. I'll figure it out." When I finally realized I couldn't, I picked up the phone and called the only people left, my parents. My voice cracked with shame as I asked, "Can Lily and I stay with you for a while? Just until I get back on my feet." There was a long silence. My mother finally sighed. "You can come, but don't expect this to be permanent." It wasn't warmth. It wasn't love. But it was a roof. And for Lily, I swallowed my pride and said, "Thank you." I packed what little we had left into 2 bags, some baby clothes, a faded blanket, and the last can of formula, and left the apartment that once held my dreams of a family. As I locked the door behind me, I felt like I was also locking away the last pieces of the life I thought I had. The drive back to my parents' house in Dayton felt endless. I sat on the bus with Lily nestled in my arms, her tiny hand gripping my sweater as if she could sense my unease. I stared out the window at the gray skies, wondering if I had failed not just as a wife but as a mother. When we arrived, my mother, Carol, opened the door. She didn't rush to hug me or even look at Lily. Instead, she glanced at the bags in my hands and muttered, "Bring your things upstairs. Your old room is still there, but it's full of storage. You'll need to clean it. Her tone wasn't cruel exactly, but it wasn't welcoming either. It was the tone you'd use with a stranger asking for a favor. My father, Richard, not the grandfather I'd meet later, but my dad sat in his recliner, watching television. He barely turned his head when I walked in. Make sure Lily doesn't cry too much. I need my sleep. I bit my lip and nodded. For Lily's sake, I swallowed every word burning on my tongue. The room I grew up in had changed. Boxes of old clothes, broken lamps, and forgotten junk were piled against the walls. Dust coated the shelves. The bed sagged in the middle. It didn't feel like home anymore. Still, I laid out Lily's blanket in the crib I'd dragged along, wiped down the surfaces, and whispered, "This will be enough for now." At first, I tried to stay invisible, help around the house, cook dinner, and take care of Lily quietly, but it was never enough. "Look at your brother, Mark," my mother said one night as we sat at the table. "He has a good job in Chicago. A wife, 2 kids, a real home. Why couldn't you be more like him?" I stared at my plate of spaghetti, twisting the noodles without answering. "Mark always made smart choices," my father added. "You, Sarah, you've been nothing but trouble since high school. And now, bringing another mouth to feed into this house." He nodded toward Lily, who sat in a high chair beside me, happily babbling to herself. I felt the sting of tears, but forced a smile for Lily's sake. She didn't deserve to see her mother break down. To contribute, I found a part-time job at a nearby diner, waiting tables during the day. Every dollar I made went toward baby supplies and giving my parents a share for letting us stay. Mom kept track of every penny, reminding me whenever I came home late, "Don't think you're living here for free." Sometimes, when I got home after a double shift, I found my mother rocking one of Mark's kids in her arms. He often visited with his wife, Claire, but ignoring Lily when she reached out, crying for attention. It was like my daughter was invisible to them, a burden they wished would disappear. One evening, when I rushed home after my shift, Lily had a fever. I panicked, holding her in my arms, begging Mom for help. She barely looked up from the TV. "You need to learn responsibility, Sarah. We raised our kids already. Lily's yours." Her words sliced through me. I wanted to scream that Lily was their granddaughter too, but the fight drained out of me before it could even begin. I rocked Lily through the night, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. We'll get through this, I promise." But deep down, I was terrified. Terrified that no matter how hard I worked, I'd never be good enough in their eyes. Terrified that they would one day decide Lily and I didn't belong at all. And as it turned out, I was right. The tension in my parents' house grew heavier with each passing week. Lily was growing, starting to crawl and babble more, but instead of celebrating her milestones, my parents treated every sound like an annoyance. One night, after a long shift at the diner, I walked in to find my mother scowling. Lily was crying for hours. "You need to teach her discipline. We can't live like this." "She's just a baby, Mom," I whispered, rocking Lily against my chest. "Mark's kids never cried this much," she snapped back. Claire knew how to raise children properly. The words stung. Claire, my brother's perfect wife, could do no wrong in their eyes. Whenever Mark and Claire visited, the house transformed into a warm, welcoming home. My mother cooked special meals, my father brought out his best stories, and laughter filled the rooms. But when it was just me and Lily, the house felt cold. I tried to keep peace. I scrubbed floors, washed dishes, paid them from my meager wages, and kept Lily as quiet as possible. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Then came the night that changed everything. I was in the kitchen heating up a bottle for Lily when I overheard my parents talking in the living room. "We can't keep this up, Carol," my father said. "Sarah and the baby are taking up space. Mark and Claire visit every weekend now, and the kids need a room to stay in." "I know," my mother replied. "It's not fair to Mark that his children have to sleep on the couch when Sarah's sitting in that old room. She's an adult. She should be standing on her own by now." My heart pounded. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the bottle, praying I'd misheard. But then my father's voice cut through the air like a knife. "We'll give her 2 weeks. After that, she has to go." The bottle slipped from my hands, clattering onto the floor. My parents looked up, startled, but I didn't wait to hear more. I scooped up Lily and ran to my room, tears blinding my eyes. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to figure out where to go, how to survive with no savings, no home, and a baby who depended on me for everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the bed, holding Lily close, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. She was innocent, unaware of the cruelty around us. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I won't let them take our dignity. I'll find a way." But inside, I was breaking. The days that followed were unbearable. My mother dropped hints at every opportunity. "Don't get too comfortable, Sarah. We need this house back for family." For family. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. Weren't Lily and I family too? Mark came by with his kids that weekend, and I could see the unspoken truth in the way my parents doted on them. My father set up their old room with fresh sheets and new toys, while my mother prepared a feast. Meanwhile, Lily and I sat in the corner, forgotten. When Mark left, my father knocked on my door. "Sarah," he said, his tone firm. "You've heard what we said. 2 weeks. I'm not repeating myself." I wanted to beg, to plead for more time, but his eyes were cold, his jaw set. Nothing I said would change his mind. That night, I packed what little I had into 2 bags. Lily's clothes, her blanket, a few bottles, and the stuffed bunny she clutched in her sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking around the room where I had once dreamed of growing up safe and loved. Now it felt like a cage closing in on me. I realized the truth then. To my parents, I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a burden. And Lily, my precious Lily, was invisible to them. 2 weeks later, with nowhere else to go, we stepped out of that house for the last time. My father didn't even come to the door. My mother just said, "Good luck, Sarah," her voice flat, as if she were speaking to a stranger. The door closed behind me, and I stood on the porch with Lily in my arms. The wind was cold, the sky gray. For the second time in my life, I was being pushed out by the people who were supposed to love me most. Only this time, I had more to lose. Because I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for Lily. The day I left my parents' house, I carried 2 bags and Lily on my hip, not knowing where we'd sleep that night. I found a small, run-down boarding house on the edge of Dayton. The landlord, a gaunt man with yellowed teeth, eyed me suspiciously. "Cash up front," he said. "No noise, no trouble." I handed over the last of my tips from the diner, praying it would buy us time. The room smelled of mildew, the walls stained with watermarks, but it had a door that locked, and a mattress that didn't belong to the street. For Lily, that was enough. At night, I tucked her into her blanket and whispered, "We'll be okay, sweetheart. Just a little longer." But deep down, fear clawed at me. I tried to keep my job at the diner, but childcare became impossible. My mother no longer watched Lily, and daycare was more expensive than my entire paycheck. So, I started bringing Lily with me, hoping the manager wouldn't notice. One afternoon, I tucked her stroller in the corner of the break room, feeding her crackers between orders. But when the dinner rush hit, Lily cried. I rushed to soothe her, but my manager stormed in, his face red. "This isn't a daycare, Sarah," he barked. "You can't bring a baby here. I don't have anyone else, please, I'll keep her quiet." "No. You're done. Pick up your check and go." Ow, the words crashed over me like a wave. I held Lily close as the customers stared, shame burning in my cheeks. We walked out into the night air, my heart pounding, my future slipping further away. Without a job, the days blurred together. I stretched every dollar, skipping meals, eating crackers, so Lily could have formula. I sold my phone, then my wedding ring, just to buy diapers. But it wasn't enough. The landlord knocked one rainy afternoon, his voice flat. "You're behind on rent. Out by tomorrow." I begged, clutching Lily in my arms. "Please, just one more week. I'll find work. I'll pay you." He shook his head. "Tomorrow." And he meant it. The next day, our belongings were dumped in the hallway. I stood in the rain, clutching Lily under my jacket, watching the only roof we had close behind us. I called my parents one last time, desperation breaking my voice. "Mom, Dad, please, I don't have anywhere to go. Lily's sick, she needs warmth. My father's reply was cold as ice. Mark and his kids are coming this weekend. We can't take you back. You'll figure it out. The line went dead. That was the moment I realized. To them, we truly were nothing. So, I walked. Through streets slick with rain, past glowing windows where other families sat around dinner tables. Each step felt heavier, but Lily's soft breaths against my chest kept me moving. By nightfall, we found ourselves under a highway bridge where other lost souls gathered, men huddled by fires in rusted barrels, women curled under thin blankets, children clutching stuffed animals gone gray with dirt. A man named Joe, a mechanic who'd lost everything, handed me an old tarp. "Keep her warm," he said gently, nodding toward Lily. I spread the tarp over us, holding her close. Her tiny body shivered against mine, and I whispered through tears, "Mommy's here. I won't let go." That night, as rain pattered on the concrete above, I lay awake staring into the dark. I'd lost my husband, my home, my family, and now my last shred of security. For the first time, I wondered if we would survive. The storm that night was relentless. Rain pounded against the concrete above us, finding its way through cracks and dripping onto the tarp I'd spread out. The wind howled through the underpass, cutting through my thin jacket. Lily whimpered against my chest, her cheeks damp and flushed with fever. I rocked her gently, whispering, "Shh, Mommy's here. Hold on, baby. Just hold on." My voice broke, but I forced myself to smile for her. Beside us, Joe and a woman named Maria, another soul lost to the streets, struggled to keep their small fire alive. Maria glanced over, her eyes filled with pity. She handed me a packet of crackers she'd been saving. "For the little one?" she said softly. I thanked her, my throat tightening with gratitude. But even as I fed Lily tiny pieces, the fear clawed at me. She needed warmth, real food, medicine, not scraps under a bridge. As the storm raged on, I closed my eyes and prayed. I hadn't prayed in years, but desperation makes you reach for anything. "Please, if there's anyone listening, give me a way out, for her." And then, through the sheets of rain, I saw movement. At first, I thought it was just another drifter, but as the figure drew closer, I realized he didn't belong here. He was tall, dressed in a black suit that seemed absurd in the downpour, and he carried a large umbrella. His polished shoes splashed in the puddles as he walked with purpose, scanning the shadows under the bridge. My heart raced. Strangers could mean danger. I pulled Lily closer, shielding her with my body. The man stopped a few feet away, lowering his umbrella. His face was lined with age, his silver hair plastered slightly by the rain, but his eyes sharp and blue pierced through the darkness. For a long moment, he just looked at us. Then, in a voice steady and warm, he said, "Sarah, I finally found you." I froze. "My name?" My voice shook as I demanded. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, his gaze softening as it fell on Lily. "My name is Richard Whitmore. I'm your grandfather." The words crashed over me like thunder. I shook my head. "No, that's not possible. My father told me you died years ago." Richard's lips curved into a sad smile. "That's what he wanted you to believe, but I'm very much alive, and I've been looking for you for a long time." I tightened my hold on Lily, suspicion boiling with confusion. "If you're really my grandfather, then where have you been? Why now when we're at our lowest?" He didn't flinch at the accusation. Instead, he crouched down so he was eye level with me, the rain dripping from his umbrella onto the concrete. "Your father, my son, betrayed me, Sarah," he said quietly. "He stole everything I had. He spread lies that I was gone, buried me with his silence. But I never stopped searching for you. When I heard what happened, your husband leaving, your parents casting you out, I knew I couldn't waste another day." His eyes glistened, but his voice stayed firm. "I will not let you or Lily suffer another night like this. Come with me. Let me give you the life you deserve." My mind reeled. Was this real? Or just another cruel trick the world had decided to play on me? I searched his face for deceit, for the slickness of a con man, but all I saw were the lines of regret and a resemblance I couldn't ignore, the same piercing blue eyes my father had, only softer, kinder. The storm raged louder, wind whipping the tarp from above us. Lily cried, her tiny fists curling against my chest. I looked at her, my sweet baby girl shivering in my arms, and something inside me broke. We had nothing left. No home, no job, no family willing to love us. If this man was lying, I'd deal with the consequences. But if he was telling the truth, this was our only chance. I swallowed hard, meeting his gaze. If you're lying to me, I won't forgive you. Not for my daughter's sake. Richard nodded solemnly. You have my word. You'll never regret this. He stood, holding his umbrella over us. With trembling arms, I gathered our meager belongings and followed him out from under the bridge. Just beyond the road, parked at the curb, was a sleek black car, its headlights cutting through the rain. A driver in uniform opened the door, revealing leather seats, and my breath caught an infant car seat already installed. I slid inside, clutching Lily. For the first time in months, I felt warmth surround us. Lily stopped crying, her big eyes blinking in wonder as if she knew, instinctively, that life had shifted. As the car pulled away from the bridge, I glanced back at the torn tarp and soggy blankets we were leaving behind. My chest ached with disbelief. Maybe, just maybe, this was the miracle I had prayed for. The car ride felt like a dream. Warm air hummed through the vents, and the soft leather seat beneath me contrasted so sharply with the damp concrete we'd left behind. Lily nestled into the infant seat as if it had been waiting for her all along. For the first time in weeks, she drifted into a peaceful sleep without shivering. I stared out the window as the city lights blurred past, my mind racing. Who was this man really? Could I trust him? My heart wanted to believe, but years of betrayal had made me cautious. Still, the warmth, the safety, the way he looked at Lily with tenderness, something in me dared to hope. Hours later, we pulled up to a sprawling estate just outside Tampa, Florida. Even in the early dawn light, it looked like something out of a magazine. Cream-colored walls, red-tiled roofs, tall palm trees swaying in the breeze. A wrought iron gate swung open as the car approached, revealing manicured gardens and a fountain that glittered under the rising sun. I stepped out, holding Lily, my jaw slack. This is your home? Richard smiled gently. Our home now. Come inside. The moment we entered, the scent of fresh flowers and polished wood enveloped us. A grand chandelier sparkled overhead, casting warm light across marble floors. Two staff members, a kind-looking woman in her 50s and a younger man in a chef's uniform, greeted us warmly. This is Elena, the housekeeper, and Luis, our chef, Richard said. They'll take care of you as if you were their own. I nodded stiffly, overwhelmed. I wasn't used to being welcomed anywhere, let alone a place like this. Richard led us upstairs to a large guest room. The bed was king-sized with crisp linens, and beside it stood a crib filled with soft blankets and brand-new toys. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating the room like a promise. I lowered Lily into the crib, her tiny hands clutching a stuffed bunny already waiting for her. For the first time since her birth, she smiled in her sleep. I pressed a hand to my mouth, tears spilling silently down my cheeks. You don't need to cry anymore, Sarah, Richard said softly behind me. You're safe now. Later that morning, a doctor arrived, a man named Dr. Ramirez, carrying a polished medical bag. He examined Lily thoroughly, listening to her breathing, checking her temperature. She has a mild cold, but she'll recover quickly now that she's warm and cared for, he reassured me. Then he turned to me. You, however, are exhausted, malnourished, and under tremendous stress. You need rest, Sarah. Real rest. His words made me realize how much I had been running on fumes, surviving from one crisis to the next. That evening, Luis prepared dinner. Warm chicken soup, fresh bread, and a salad that tasted like heaven after months of cheap meals and skipped dinners. I ate slowly at first, almost afraid to believe it was real. But as the flavors settled into me, I felt strength return to my body. Lily drank a bottle of formula Luis had carefully prepared, her cheeks rosy again. Watching her coo contentedly, I whispered, You deserve this, sweetheart. You deserve the world. Over the next few days, I started to exhale the fear I'd been carrying for so long. Every morning, I woke to the sound of birds in the garden instead of traffic on a highway. Elena helped me wash Lily's clothes, folding them neatly into drawers. Luis made breakfast with fresh fruit and warm bread. Richard never pushed, never demanded. Instead, he spent his mornings on the balcony, sipping coffee, inviting me to join. "Tell me about yourself, Sarah," he said one day. "Tell me everything you've endured. I want to know." And for the first time, I did. I told him about David's betrayal, my parents' cruelty, the sleepless nights under bridges, the hunger and shame. He listened without interruption, his eyes glistening with sorrow. When I finished, he reached across the table and placed his weathered hand over mine. "You've suffered enough. From now on, you will not walk alone. I promise you that." I wanted to believe him. A part of me still held back, still afraid of another cruel twist. But as I looked around the crib where Lily slept soundly, the warm food on the table, the steady presence of this man who called himself my grandfather, I felt something stir inside me. For the first time in years, it was hope. When Richard first suggested I join his real estate company, I almost laughed. Me? A single mother who had spent the past year begging for shelter, who had no degree, no polished resume, no self-confidence left. But he insisted gently, "Sarah, you know about life. You've survived storms no classroom could teach. That kind of strength, that's what people trust." So I tried. On my first day at Whitmore Properties, I wore the simple navy suit Richard had bought me. Walking into the glass building downtown felt surreal. The lobby gleamed with marble floors, and employees hurried past in tailored clothes, speaking in quick, confident voices. I wanted to shrink into the floor, but Richard didn't announce me as his granddaughter. He simply introduced me to the staff as a new trainee. "Sarah is here to learn from the ground up," he said, his tone firm, leaving no room for favoritism. At first, I struggled. I stumbled through phone calls, mixing up terms like escrow and appraisal. I was nervous around clients, my voice shaking as I presented listings. Many days I went home defeated, convinced I didn't belong. But then, I'd look at Lily, asleep in her crib, her tiny face serene under the soft glow of a nightlight. I'd remember the bridge, the rain, the hunger in her eyes, and I would whisper to myself, "I can't go back there. I won't." Slowly, I improved. A kind colleague named Emily took me under her wing, teaching me how to listen to clients' needs instead of just selling numbers. "Be genuine, Sarah," she said. "People buy homes because they want to feel safe. You know what that means more than anyone." She was right. My honesty became my strength. Instead of slick pitches, I spoke plainly, sharing why certain houses felt like true homes. Clients began trusting me. Some even requested me personally. After 6 months, I closed my first sale, a modest condo for a retired couple who said, "You're not like the others. You actually listened." When they signed the papers, I cried quietly in the bathroom, overwhelmed with pride. Years passed, and my confidence grew. I learned contracts, negotiations, even team leadership. Emily once told me, "Sarah, you're a natural. You've turned your scars into wisdom." By the time Lily turned 4, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Richard watched silently from the sidelines, pride glowing in his eyes as I climbed the ranks. Eventually, the board voted me CEO. "She earned it," Richard said firmly. "No favoritism, pure ability." News outlets caught wind of my story. From homeless single mother to CEO. They invited me onto morning shows, where I spoke with a calm, steady smile. "Life may knock you down," I told the cameras, "but you decide whether to stand up." I stood up for my daughter. For a while, life felt like a dream. Lily thrived in private school, Richard became the grandfather she adored, and I led the company with compassion. But the past has a way of resurfacing. One afternoon, Emily buzzed my office line. Her voice was tight. "Sarah, there are 2 people in the lobby claiming to be your parents. They insist on seeing you." My chest tightened. I hadn't spoken to them since the night they cast us out. Memories of cold words and slammed doors returned like knives. I told Emily, "Keep them waiting. I'll come down." The lobby sparkled with glass and light. a world away from the dingy house I'd once begged to stay in, and there they were, my parents. My mother in a faded wool coat, her eyes darting around as if appraising the wealth around her. My father in an outdated suit, his smile awkward. "Sarah, honey," my mother said, her voice syrupy. "We saw you on TV. You've done so well. We're so proud." Proud? I almost laughed. My father stepped forward. "We should reconnect. We could help you manage all this success. Family should stick together, right?" The word family made my stomach turn. I thought of the nights Lily and I froze under a tarp while they kept warm for Mark's children. "Help?" I said, my voice calm but icy. "Like how you helped me when you threw us out. Like when I begged and you shut the door." Their smiles faltered. My mother stammered, "Those were hard times, Sarah. You can't hold it against us forever." But before I could answer, footsteps echoed behind me. Richard entered the lobby, tall in a sharp suit, his presence commanding the room. My parents froze. My father's face drained of color. "Richard? Dad? You're alive?" Richard's eyes hardened. "Alive, yes. And watching. I saw what you did to Sarah, to Lily, just as you once betrayed me." Employees in the lobby had stopped to watch, whispers spreading. Richard didn't lower his voice. "You stole from me years ago, Kenneth," he said, his words like stone. "You abandoned your mother, and she died with a broken heart. You abandoned Sarah and her child, repeating the same cruelty. And now you dare show your face here?" My father stuttered. I can't explain." "No," I cut in, my voice steady. "There's nothing left to explain." I looked him dead in the eyes, the man who had called me a burden. "The day you cast Lily and me into the street, I lost my parents. I have a family now, but it's not you." The lobby was silent, every employee bearing witness. My parents shrank back, shame coloring their faces. For once, it wasn't me who carried the burden, it was them. They left without another word. I stood tall, Lily's photo on my office desk waiting upstairs, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. When the glass doors of Whitmore Properties closed behind my parents that day, I stood still for a long moment, my chest rising and falling, almost unable to believe it was over. For years, I had carried the weight of their rejection, their cold words echoing in my head. "You're a burden." And now, with the whole world watching, I had finally returned their judgment to them. Richard placed a steady hand on my shoulder. His voice was low, but every word carried strength. "You've done well, Sarah. You've faced the past without fear. Now it's time to live for the future." And for the first time in my life, I felt that future opening wide before me. That evening, back at the mansion, Lily ran into my arms after school, her backpack bouncing. "Mommy, Mommy, I got a gold star in class today." Her bright eyes were filled with joy, untouched by the darkness we had survived. I hugged her tightly, inhaling the sweet scent of crayons and sunshine. "I'm so proud of you, baby. You're my star." At dinner, the three of us, Richard, Lily, and I, sat at the long oak table, laughter echoing through the grand halls. Lily told silly stories about her classmates. Richard chuckled softly, and I realized this was family. Not the people who abandoned me, but the ones who stayed, who cared, who chose love over blood. Weeks turned into months. My role as CEO deepened, and with Richard's wisdom beside me, we expanded the company into new markets. But I never forgot where I came from. I started initiatives to help struggling single parents buy affordable homes. "No one should ever have to raise a child under a bridge," I told the board. They all agreed. At night, after long days of meetings and paperwork, I would take Lily to the mansion's balcony. Together, we looked out at the twinkling lights of Tampa stretching into the horizon. "Look, sweetheart," I whispered, pointing to the skyline. "That's our world now. A world we built together." She giggled, waving at the lights as if they could wave back. In her laughter, I heard a promise. She would never know the fear, the hunger, the cold that I once endured. Richard often joined us, leaning on his cane, his eyes misty with pride. "You've given me back something I thought I lost forever," he said one evening. "Hope, legacy, family." And I understood then that his redemption was intertwined with mine. He had been betrayed by his son, just as I had been betrayed by my parents. But together, across generations, we had chosen a different path. Forgiveness where possible, strength where necessary, and love always. As Lily grew older, I told her pieces of our story not to burden her, but to teach her. I told her about the nights under the bridge, about the strangers who had shown us kindness when family did not, about the man in the black suit who appeared in the storm and changed everything. She listened with wide eyes, sometimes frowning, sometimes smiling, always ending with the same words. "I'm glad you never gave up, Mommy." Those words became my anchor. Years later, when Whitmore Properties hosted a charity gala, I stood on stage with Lily and Richard by my side. Looking out at the crowd, I shared the truth. I once thought my life was over, that failure defined me. But life doesn't end when you fall, it begins when you rise. Family is not always blood. Family is love, responsibility, and the people who stand with you when the world turns away. The audience rose in applause, but all I saw was Lily's smile and Richard's proud nod. As the night ended, I stepped outside into the warm Florida air. The stars glittered above, just as they had on the darkest nights of my past. But this time, I wasn't alone, trembling in the cold. I was standing tall, a mother, a granddaughter, a leader, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that no matter what storms lay ahead, Lily and I would never face them alone again.